Hello, class. Sorry that this is delayed, but I finally got Prezi to work. I think they were out at the headquarters. But here we are now and ready to roll. So today we is our third to last week, I guess. There's only really one more video that I'm going to be doing, and it'll be next week. It'll be a little late because I'm going to be responding to these second drafts to let you know if there's any large issues that I saw a lot of people could use comments on. And we're going to be talking about social media this week and mobile fundraising. Next week, we'll be talking about using social enterprises and sponsorships and really getting into this sort of market economy as a way of fundraising for nonprofits. And in the last week, there's one short article that's basically an overview of almost everything that we've learned, put into kind of a concise little article. Hopefully, it'll be helpful. And then, of course, you'll turn in your last and final draft of the development plan, making up 25% of your grade. Today, we're talking about social media, and we'll also be talking about the development plan draft 2, which will be due very, very soon. And so here we go. Here's our development plan. Here's our Prezi finally out of the ethersphere. So we just talked about. So social media, I think the one thing the book can't give you is that you really ought to focus on repetition, repetition, repetition. We got the surgeon here. He's asking for a clamp, clamp, scalpel, scalpel, Facebook, stat, Facebook. Nothing new yet. Okay, where were we? Right. So this is what we imagine people are doing when they're going onto social media, is they're sort of waiting for our messages to come through so they can respond to them and hopefully donate money because of our empowering messages that we've sent in connection with our language guide. However, what actually happens is that they are in the middle of surgery and they don't look until after they get out of surgery. And by that point, our message is buried under hours and hours of other messages. So we have to post again. That's why I say repetition, repetition, repetition. That's not the only thing, is that whenever you ask for money, you need to ask 5 to 7 times. You have to have what we call 5 to 7 touches. You need to touch people 5 to 7 times. So that means that in order for social media to count as one of those 5 to 7 touches, you have to ask multiple times on social media, because only about 5 to 10% of your followers see every post. And that means that you need to ask 20 times to count it as one touch, right? So social media isn't as efficient as it seems at first, but it is still a very powerful tool, and it's one that you need to be able to use. The best way to get the touches that you need through repetition on social media is to set up an editorial calendar where you talk about one topic for a full week, and talk about that one topic 10 to 20 times. And that way you can count that as a touch. Then the next week you talk about a different topic. Some people are going to see multiple posts about whether or not your nonprofit is self-sustaining, or whether or not how many people your nonprofit helps. So you have to frame it differently each time. Otherwise, they're just going to get bored and zone out your tweets. They should be interesting, and like they said, you only 1 out of 3 needs to be an ask directly, right? The other 2 should be information, articles that are similar, that are about the topic that you're handling in your nonprofit, that sort of thing. And to do that, you should set up an editorial calendar around a given topic for, say, a week or a month or a few days, right? Mobile fundraising is more certain to reach your audience, right? Because you're texting them directly, but you need a service to do that, and that's sometimes more expensive. You also need a big list. And then you can't overdo mobile contacts, because they're going to hit them every time, and it can get very irritating, especially when that text message comes in the middle of a movie that they like or a play. That's all I'm going to say about social media. Now I'm going to focus on the development plan. So let's go back to development plan draft 1 that we already did. And what we're going to do is add on to development plan draft 1 to create a complete puzzle. Development plan draft 1, the first part of your development plan, was the big picture. Where's all the money coming from? What's the big language that we're going to be using in our very reduced and redacted language guide? You're not using much of a language guide, just a teeny tiny redacted language guide. Um, and you're writing for an audience who already know about your nonprofit. You don't have to convince them that your nonprofit is awesome. You have to convince them that your development plan is awesome and that it will help your nonprofit. And then you have to convince them to use your language to raise money, because you, having had this class and being the experienced fundraiser in the room, will know the best language to use to raise money for the nonprofit. Hopefully you've done some experimentation as well. So we're going to tack on our strategies over here. We're going to tack them onto the draft one that you've already written. Although most of you will have to delete a lot of draft one, and because you added too much in the first draft, but my comments to you on draft one will be clear about what you should and should not be deleting. Now what we're going to do with strategies is fill in the gaps. So the language guide is going to be shorter. It's going to contain exactly 4 things: a sentence to explain how to use the language guide for staffers in your organization, the organization mission and history. Those can be combined into one sentence, or 2 sentences, but in 1 paragraph. And then fundraising asks. But all 4 of those things, and only those 4 things, should be included in the language guide that you have in the development plan. The rest of your language guide is for your reference to keep your language consistent. The financial profile should be short. All I want to see is numbers. That's it. Here's where we're going to get the money. That's all you should have in the financial profile. Really just put a table together, put strategy 1, event, haunted house, strategy, and then the amount. Strategy 2, event, fun run, the amount. Strategy 3, end of year campaign, amount. That's all I want to see in that. Make sure that the conclusion puts the development plan back together. We'll talk about that in a second. But keep to the big picture. Keep thinking about the big picture in your conclusion and in your draft 1 materials. Strategies, you get into the weeds a little bit. So let's talk about strategies. What are you adding to the development plan today? You're adding the strategies. And there's going to be 4 parts to each strategy section. So you're going to list, the heading is going to be something like haunted house. Strategy number 1, haunted house, and then the amount that you want to make. And then that section is going to have, you're going to substantiate your strategy and the amount. You're going to tell us when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen, and who's going to do it. All right, let's talk about each of these briefly. First, you're going to tell us, when you substantiate it, you need to substantiate the amount. Why do you think that this amount is the amount that you're going to be able to raise through the haunted house or grants or whatever? Substantiate that amount. Tell us a good reason. If you say the haunted house, you're going to say, well, I expect to have $20 a ticket times 1,000 people. That's going to be, $20,000 minus $5,000 to $7,000 of expenses. So I expect to make $13,000 profit on the haunted house. That's the sort of thing I need to see. Organization fit. Why does the haunted house fit into this organization? Is it just that the neighborhood likes haunted houses? Is it your crowd that likes haunted houses? Or is there something about your nonprofit that the haunted house works really well? For example, Moana's Home, which is a project that Marsha is doing, they're talking about doing a dinner from the food that is farmed out of her nonprofit's farm. That's an organizational fit. So just briefly say, well, since Moana's Home does organic food, a dinner and learning how to cook and etc. is a good fit for Moana's Home. And donor fit. Who are the donors you're after, and why does this particular event, this particular strategy of fundraising help suit those donors? For example, if you're going after a fundraiser for a foundation, you'll want to say, what about that foundation gives you the idea that they're going to donate to your cause? All right. So next you're going to answer when. On what day exactly? Pick a day. Look at a calendar. Make sure it's a weekday. On what day exactly will the planning process begin? Be specific. Say May 1st, we're going to have a meeting to plan this event that's going to happen in September. How long will communications go out? Maybe the event is in September, so the communications go out 3 months in advance with 1 email per month until the last 6 weeks, and then it's 1 email per week, something like that. That's how specific you need to be. How many meetings are needed afterward? Will there be 1 debriefing meeting? Will there be 2 debriefing meetings? 1 to set up next year's event, etc. Then you need to tell us how. How is this strategy going to be carried out? What software will be necessary? What other tech? Will you need phones? And I mean more than one phone. Will you need 10 phones to do a phone bank, right? Will you need other technology such as a sound system to do a fun run, right? You need a sound system to make announcements. Will you need a sound system or a room to do an event? Will you need an email list serve software to do an email list, to do an end of year campaign using email? Will you need Facebook and Twitter to do an end of year campaign that's substantiated by Facebook and Twitter? All right. How will the strategy fit with other strategies? If you're already using Facebook and Twitter year round, how are you going to coordinate the Facebook and Twitter turning toward the end of year campaign or the fun run at that particular time? Or you can use an editorial calendar, and where will that editorial be kept, and who will be in charge of that editorial calendar? Which is our next step. Who's going to do all this? I need to name a point person, name a particular person who will be in charge of each strategy. And it shouldn't be an individual's name. It shouldn't be Michaela, right? It shouldn't be Girma. It should be a spot. It should be financial director, volunteer coordinator, executive director, the board, right? A member of the board or committee on the board of directors, or a particular volunteer that you know is reliable, right? And you should say a reliable volunteer. Okay. Will volunteers be used? Will beneficiaries help? Right? Will beneficiaries actually help ask for money? As is the case with Michaela's really charming video at the beginning of the semester, where she had her kids come on and say why we should donate to the Sun Valley Youth Center, right? How will board members be used? Will board members be just expected to bring in friends, buy a table? Will they be expected to donate? Will they be expected to do more? Will they have particular talents that you want to make use of? How will the board members that you know are there be used? Will they be in control, or will they take a back seat to the executive director? How will program staff be used? These might be people who have nothing to do with fundraising, but still, you might need their stories, you might need their connections. So just think about these things. Who will actually be doing this? These are all the things that you need to answer for each one of your 5 strategies. That means in less than a page for each strategy, you have to answer those 4 questions. It's a lot to answer in less than a page. So be very careful about how you use your words. Then last, you're going to do a short conclusion, and you should keep it short. Did I mention that it should be short? The conclusion should only reiterate the importance of using the language guide, the the 3 parts of the language guide that you posted, and then describe how the development plan helps the organization meet its mission. All right, so you should reiterate one more time that the organization needs money, and that this development plan is designed particularly to get this organization the amount of money that it needs to survive and to thrive. Right? And that's all you're going to do in the conclusion. That's it. Then you'll turn it in to me. I'll give you comments, and you can make one last change before you have a pretty good development plan as a real tool to use in your nonprofit. Up next, we're almost done. We've only got a couple weeks left. Next week, I'll grade these. I'll get them back to you really quickly. I'll start getting back on Tuesday afternoon. If you turn them in late, then I'm going to have to get them back later, obviously. Then we'll talk about market-driven fundraising. That includes sponsorships and social enterprises. We'll have a very short discussion about those. It's not going to be as long as some of the other discussions, but I do want you to process how market-driven fundraising might be different and do a short survey. Final week, we'll just have a short reading about overall fundraising, and you'll turn in your final draft. And as usual, I invite you to email me at nuriel.heckler@ucdenver.edu. Text me at 970-236-6311 or call. Or you can Zoom with me on Monday and Wednesday from 11 to 1. Zoom room number is right there, 309-802-2332. So join me anytime. And I hope if you do have any questions, please reach out to me. The one thing that I only check during weekdays is the message board through Canvas. So if you're using the message board through Canvas, there may be a delay. Everything else I check pretty regularly, okay? So keep using these 3 ways of communicating with me more than the message board through Canvas. All right. Thanks a lot. Have a great week. We're almost done here, and I hope you're getting what you want out of this.